So today's lesson is about blocks, and CAD blocks are named groups of objects that act as a single object. So this can be in either 2D or 3D, and they're very useful for repeated content, so objects that you have repeated throughout your drawing. And it's also very useful for content that you don't want to be easily editable. So you don't want to accidentally change that content. It can also help you save time, maintain consistency, and it can even reduce the file size since you reuse the content. And blocks can also be easily downloaded and shared. And something else that's very good about blocks is that if you make changes to one block, it'll automatically change all other blocks of the same name. So we'll go ahead and go through this by going through assignment 2.3. All right, and so here I have my assignment open in AutoCAD, and if I go up to my ribbon, I can see the block panel. All right, so we'll go through some of these as we go through this assignment. So the first thing we want to do is we want to insert the toy block. So if I go down here, I see that I have some options to insert a block, and I want to insert the toy block. I'll just put that in here. All right, pretty simple. And then here I want to create a block. So I want to turn this object into a block named polygon. Right now this is not a block, this is just a simple object. It has grips. I could change it if I wanted to. I'll go ahead and undo that. But the point is it is not currently a block. And notice it is on layer 0. So I'm going to turn this into a block, and I can either do B and spacebar or enter to do the block command, or I could go up here to create. They both do the same thing. So I'm going to name this polygon. I'll specify a pick point. Right now it's at the origin. I want it to be actually on my block, so I'll specify it right there. And I'll say OK. All right, and now this is a block. So I can't easily edit it. It has this grip, but I can't change it. I'm just moving it around. All right, and then right here it says copy or insert the polygon block, explode it, and then I want to change the layer. Okay, so I could take this and I could do CO for copy, or I can insert it here. So I'll go ahead and insert it just how I did earlier. Oops. Here we go. And I'll just move it. I didn't have to do the move command for this, by the way, for the block. I could just grab the grip and move it around. Okay, and then now, so to edit it, I would usually have to go here to edit, or I would right click and go to edit, but I don't want to edit it because it's going to edit this, and it will also change this one because they have the same name. And I'm trying to create a new block called polygon 2. So for this, I have to explode it. So I'll do X for explode. So now it's back into a simple object. And now I want to change the layer to green. So I'll change it to green. And I'm going to create a new block. So I'll do create, or actually I'll do B for block. Same thing, but I think I did create last time. And I'm going to name this polygon 2. And I'll just specify this other side as a pick point this time. And I'll say OK. All right, and now I want to copy or insert both the polygon block and polygon 2 block into this area. So this time I'll just copy it. So I'll do CO for copy. And I'll put this here, escape, and then I'll copy this one, CO. And I want to fit them. So actually I didn't have to scale them. I could fit them both side by side like that. And so now I want to move both the blocks to the yellow layer. So see what happens. So notice I drew this one, and this one is on the green layer. Okay. If I were to hover over it, see it says layer 0, but because that block is on layer 0. If I went to block editor, just to show you guys really quick. This was drawn on the green layer. So this one was drawn on the 0 layer. Now let me move them both to the yellow layer. Okay, so notice that my block that was drawn on the 0 layer, and now it's on the yellow layer, it changed to take on the properties of that yellow layer. This one was drawn on the green layer, and it maintained its properties from the green layer. So even though now it's on the yellow layer, if I hover over it, it's going to say yellow. It didn't take on the properties because I drew it on the green layer. So if you want to have a block that will take on the properties of the layer that you put it on, then you need to draw it on the 0 layer. So you need to draw your block on the 0 layer. But because these are now on the yellow layer, if I, for example, were to freeze the yellow layer, those will both go away. Okay, so um, depending on how you draw your block, so whatever layer you draw on, it could behave slightly different. Just keep that in mind. So a lot of times I will draw my blocks on the 0 layer, and then I'll just place them on whatever layer that I want it on. So that way it could take on the properties of whatever the layer is. And then if I were to freeze, let's say the green layer, that's also going to freeze that block because I created it on the green layer. So it's taking on both the green and the yellow. So this one, for example, it is drawn on the green layer and then I place the block on the yellow layer. So if I freeze it on the yellow, it'll go away. If I freeze it on the green, it also goes away. Okay. So now I'm going to edit a block. So I'm going to edit this one right here, this snowflake, and I can either right click and I can go to block editor. And that's going to bring up this new window where I can change things in here. If I want, I could change the scale, I can move things around, etc. I'll close this and I'm going to discard the changes. Or I can go up here to edit as well. Or I can right click and do edit block in place. And so I'll say okay. So that's going to allow me to edit this block and everything else is faded. And I'm doing it this way so that way I can still read the text in my direction. So I'm going to take this and I want to scale it. I'll specify the center as the base point. And I'm going to do a scale factor of 2. So I'll do 2 and then enter. So now it has scaled up. And I want to add a circle around the perimeter of the snowflake. So start it here at the middle and then I'll go to the outside. And now I'm going to go up here and I'm going to save the changes. I'll say OK. And now not only did it edit this block, but all the blocks that have the same name have been changed to reflect those changes. Okay, and then now for this one, I want to create an attributed block. So right now this is just a simple square. It's not a block yet. And I'm going to type in ATT to create an attribute definition. So trying to do a tag for a number, so I'll say number. I'll say item number as the prompt. And the default, I'll put a number sign. I'll put 2 number signs. I'll do the justification to be middle center because I want it to be at the center of this box. And the text height, I'll do 0.18. Okay. So now I have this, and I'm going to place it at the center here. And these are still simple objects. They're not a block. So what I have to do is I have to grab the whole thing, and I'll do B for block. And I'll name this item number. So this is my item number block. I'll do a pick point. I could do it at the center. And I'll say, okay. All right, and so now I'll say okay here. Now I have this block and I can easily edit this number if I want to. So remember, blocks can't be easily edited. I can move them, but I can't change them. But because I made this an attributed block, I can double click on this and I can change this number if I would like to. So I can say 9. And then if I copy this, oops, I can double click in here and I can change it to 11 and I had 2 blocks on top of each other, so there we go. And now I have 2 blocks of the same name but with different numbers. So if I went up here, for example, so every block I create, it goes into this little view here, this panel from the Insert tab. So, or from the Insert drop down. So if I do item number, it's going to come up once again like this. And I can change the item number from here if I want to. So I can say 12. And even though these have the same name, they can have different numbers because they created it with attributes. I could just say okay and edit that later. Okay. So this was all about blocks in AutoCAD.